Guys, my next guest is the best-selling author of The Plant Paradox, The Hidden Dangers in Healthy Foods That Cause Disease and Weight Gain, which singer Kelly Clarkson and others attribute to getting healthy. A world-renowned cardiac surgeon, he's also successfully treated tens of thousands of patients suffering from autoimmune disorders with the program he's going to tell us about right now. Please welcome Dr. Stephen Gundry.
Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the show. I know you're in beautiful Palm Springs right now, right?
Nice and toasty Palm Springs in the summer.
Oh, boy. So everybody who is listening right now, wherever you are, this is why you need to continue listening to this show, okay? So some of the patients you have helped, these are the health problems that you have helped resolve, Dr. Gundry. Aching joints, acid reflux, heartburn, acne, age spots, allergies, alopecia, anemia, arthritis, asthma, autoimmune diseases, including thyroid disorders, rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, colitis, lupus, bone loss, brain fog, cancer, chronic fatigue, colon polyps, dementia, depression, diabetes, exhaustion, fibromyalgia, headaches, heart disease, infertility, IBS, leukemia, male pattern baldness, migraine headaches. I'm skipping a lot, by the way. Parkinson's, peripheral neuropathy, slow infant and child growth, unexplained bouts of dizziness or ear ringing, weight loss or weight gain. There's probably 50 more I missed in there. But these are all of the things that you have been able to resolve, all of the ailments you've been able to resolve in your patients with the plant paradox. So now that we've got everyone's attention.
And that sounds crazy, doesn't it? It really does.
You know, I don't believe it's crazy, Dr. Gundry, because I have always thought, was it Hippocrates that said, let food be thy medicine?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? So I do believe that everything can be adjusted with diet. I just didn't know how much. I always felt it, and I had an instinct and a gut for it. But after reading this book, and I was glued to it, and realizing how many healthy foods really can be unhealthy for us and for a variety of different reasons, it blew my mind. And your journey blew my mind because, and maybe we start there so people understand who you are and where you came from. I know you studied at Yale University. Give everybody a quick Dr. Gundry recap and why you left that practice and started this journey.
Yeah, the quick recap. Luckily, back in the dark ages when I went to Yale as an undergraduate, we could have we could design our own major, and I had a major where you had to defend a thesis, and my thesis was you could take a great ape, manipulate its food supply, manipulate its environment, and prove that you would create a human being. And I actually defended my thesis and got an honors, and I gave it to my parents. And then I went on to become a very famous heart surgeon and professor and chairman at Loma Linda University here in Southern California. And with my partner, Leonard Bailey, did all the infant and baby heart transplants and did a lot of immunology work and transplant. And anyhow, I became famous for operating on people that nobody else wanted to. And I was introduced to a gentleman who I call Big Ed in all my books. And Big Ed was from Miami, Florida, and had inoperable coronary artery disease. Young man, 48 years old. And he was big. He was very large when I met him. And he had been going around the country looking for surgeons or cardiologists to work on him. He had so much blockages in his coronary arteries that you couldn't put stents in it. There wasn't any place to put them. You couldn't do bypasses. There wasn't any place to land them. And he wound up on my door after about 6 months of going around the country looking for somebody. And I looked at his angiogram, the movie of his heart, and I said, Big Ed, I agree with everybody else. Nothing we're going to be able to do for you. I'm sorry. I don't like to turn people down. He said, well, here's the deal. I've been at this for 6 months. I've gone on a diet. I've lost 45 pounds. Now, he was 265 pounds when I met him. And he said, I went to a health food store, and I'm taking all these supplements. He actually brought in this huge shopping bag full of supplements. And he says, maybe I did something here in my heart. And I'm scratching my professor beard going, good for you for losing weight, but it's not going to do anything in your heart. And I know what you did with all those supplements. You made expensive urine. I really believe that. And he says, well, what would it hurt to get another angiogram, another movie of my heart? And I said, don't get your hopes up, but okay. Well, in 6 months' time, this guy had cleaned out 50% of all the blockages in his coronary arteries. Yeah. I've never seen that. Now, I've seen it a lot since, but I've never seen it. And now the heart surgeon in me says, hey, this is great news. Now we've got some places to put bypasses. You still got blockages, but now there's some places we can do it. So I actually did a 5-vessel bypass on him, which I wouldn't do now, because now I'd say, hey, great, you've got these coronary arteries starting to clean out. Let's keep doing this. But I was pretty stupid back then. And this was 17 years ago. So after we were done, I said, hey, tell me about this diet of yours. And he starts telling me, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, this is the diet I described of ancient human beings. That was my thesis.
Wow.
And I actually called my parents in San Diego. I said, hey, do you still have my thesis? And they said, oh, yeah, it's here in the shrine next to the eternal flame. And so I said, send it up to me. Because, interestingly enough, I, at that time, was obese. I weighed 228 pounds, and I'm only 5'10". And I was running 30 miles a week, going to the gym 1 hour a day. And I had high blood pressure, pre-diabetes. I actually did baby heart transplant with migraine headaches and high cholesterol. And I'm doing all these things right. And I'm going, why do I have all these things? And I was told it was genetic, because my father was the same way. And then I start looking through Big Ed's bag of supplements. And I was very famous for keeping hearts alive for heart transplant for several days and resuscitating dead hearts. And I invented a device to protect hearts during heart surgery that's still the world's largest used device. And so I'm looking through his supplements, and some of these supplements I was putting down the veins and arteries of hearts to keep them alive, and it never occurred to me to swallow the dumb things. So I started taking a bunch of supplements, and I put myself on my thesis. And I lost 50 pounds my first year, and I've lost another 20 since then. I used to wear braces on my knees to run. My arthritis went away. My blood pressure went away. My prediabetes went away, and I don't get migraine headaches. So I started operating on the people I operated on at Loma Linda, but then giving them this program, and after I operated on them. And sure enough, their diabetes went away, their arthritis went away, their high blood pressure went away. And then one fateful day about 16 years ago, my wife still calls it Black Friday, I looked in the mirror and I said, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I can't operate on people and then tell them what to do to avoid me later. I need to teach them what to eat, and I won't have to operate on them. Now, that's really stupid.
Well, it sounds less costly. Less financially gaining for you, right? A heart surgery is going to cost you a lot, or get you a lot more money.
That's correct. That's why my wife calls it Black Friday. So I resigned my position at Loma Linda and set up a clinic in Palm Springs. I also have one now in Santa Barbara, where I ask people to let me take a bunch of blood from you every 3 months, and insurance and Medicare will pay for it. And I'm going to ask you to not eat certain foods and to eat other foods, and I'm going to send you to Costco or Trader Joe's or Amazon, and I'm going to ask you to buy some supplements, and let's see what happens. And, in my book, I dedicate this book to all my patients, because really everything I've learned and published it was my patients every 3 months showing up and doing silly things that I asked them to do. And so that's it.
So here we are.
Wow.
And my co-host Serena and I are just listening to everything.
Hanging on your every word.
Hanging on your every word. We know you recently helped Kelly Clarkson, or was she just somebody that found the book and decided to jump on this diet? Tell us a little bit about that.
That's what's so exciting. She just found the book and went on this. I do have celebrities that I see, and some of them I can mention, but most of them I can't. But she found it, without me or anything. And that's what's so really wonderful, because in the book is really all the information you need to turn your life around. Mm-hmm. And Kelly had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and she was on medication. And 2 months ago, I published a paper at the American Heart Association Epidemiology and Lifestyle meeting, taking 102 patients with biomarker-proven autoimmune disease, like lupus, like rheumatoid arthritis, like Crohn's, like MS, and putting them on this program for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, 95 out of 102 patients were negative for those biomarkers of autoimmune disease, off of all medications, off of all their immunosuppressants, off of their, for instance, thyroid medication, just like Kelly. And so this huge epidemic of autoimmune disease is fixable as long as we kind of change some of the common foods that we eat, and as long as we actually get our microbiome, the bugs in your gut, back to normal. And you said you have a gut feeling about all this, and it's actually very, very, very true. Hippocrates, who you mentioned, 2,500 years ago, said that all disease begins in the gut. And, I mean, he couldn't have been more prophetic. I absolutely, positively agree with him that all those crazy diseases that you mentioned actually stem from either a derangement of our microbiome, but most importantly from leaky gut. Mm-hmm. And if you had asked me even 12 years ago what I thought about leaky gut, I would have said, that's just hocus pocus, there's no such thing. Now I can tell you, because of these sophisticated blood tests that we have, all diseases actually stem from leaky gut, including coronary artery disease.
So explain what leaky gut is for everyone that's listening.
Okay. So you and I, the lining of our intestines from our mouth all the way down to our rear end is the same surface area as a tennis court. Think about that.
Wow.
You've got
That's
a tennis
crazy.
court, inside of you.
And it's one cell thick, right?
It's only one cell thick. And these cells are all held together, locked arm in arm. Like when I was young, we played a game called Red Rover, Red Rover.
Yeah, so did we.
Sent Serena right over.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, exactly, Serena. So the idea was to break through that line, right? And usually there was a big kid with a knee. It would scare you to death, and the girls would scream, and so we're all locked. All these cells are locked arm in arm to keep the food we eat and the bacteria in there, and these little plant proteins that are called lectins, and we'll get back to that, out of us. Well, what's been discovered is that lectins, which are plant proteins, which are designed by the plant to make their predator, like us, sick, lectins actually flip a switch on the wall of our gut and make those locked arms break. The locked arms are called tight junctions. And when that breaks, there's a gap between cells and a leak. And what leaks through there are these proteins, which are called lectins, which are like a splinter that gets under your skin. And our body attacks them or attacks other things in our body that looks like them. And bacterial particles, which are called LPSs, and I won't use the word I use in the book. Well, maybe I can.
You can. It's satellite radio.
Yeah. So they're called Lipo Polysaccharides, and they're abbreviated LPSs. And I don't swear, but I call them little pieces of shit. Because that's actually what they are. And what people don't know is, throughout the day when this is going on, we have these lectins and these bacterial particles that are getting through the wall of our gut. And this is actually what causes inflammation. And inflammation is the root cause of really all diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's, whether it's Parkinson's, whether it's heart disease, arthritis. And it's all coming from the fact that this one cell-thick barrier that's the size of a tennis court is constantly being breached. And what this program does is teach you how to, seal this wall. That's how you do it. And so we take away certain foods, which seem to be really good for you. And it's actually foods that we were never designed to eat. And sadly, it's all the grains and pseudo-grains. Interestingly enough, gluten happens to be a lectin. And the problem for many of the people I see who have gone gluten-free is gluten-free foods actually have far worse lectins than gluten itself.
Like corn and things
like
that?
Like corn and quinoa. Yeah. The Incas had 3 detoxification processes to get the lectins out of quinoa so it wouldn't kill them.
Wow.
They soaked it for 48 hours. Then they let it rot. They fermented it. And then they cooked it. And It's not on the package directions.
I think we're a lot lazier than the Incas, that's for sure.
That's an incredibly good point. They're, traditional mothers taught daughters, and my mother actually taught her son, me, traditional preparation of foods, and we've lost that really in the last 2 generations. I'll give you a personal example. My grandmother was French, and she taught my mother that you had to peel tomatoes and de-seed them because the peel and the seeds were toxic. They have lectins.
I did this last night. I grew San Marzano tomatoes. I'm Italian, and I know you cook as well. Mm-hmm. And I read after. I was like, all right, well, I guess we're
peeling tomatoes
we're
now,
boiling, blanching, and peeling and de-seeding. So I did.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Italians hybridized the Roma tomato to have the most pulp to skin and seeds. And if you think about it, what they would do is just, throw the tomatoes in boiling water for 30 seconds and cut it in half. The peel would come right off, and then they'd squeeze this little bit of seeds out and then throw it in the pot. And Italians have always done that. And so it wasn't until I went away to Yale when I actually had a sliced tomato with a peel and seed, and I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever had in my life because, my grandmother knew better. The Italians always peel and de-seed their peppers before they eat them. You'll never open a glass jar of Italian bell peppers and see peels and seeds. The Southwest American Indians always peel and de-seed their peppers. You'll never open a can of green chilies and see peels and seeds because they're gone.
So, Dr. Gundry, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk more about lectins, where they exist, because they are shockingly in things that we all think are healthy. Let's talk about where lectins exist and how we need to proceed. Obviously, everyone's best bet is to get the book. This will also be in my podcast this Friday. But where do lectins exist?
So they're present in all grains and pseudograins. So they're in wheat, rye, oatmeal. They're in corn. They're in all beans and legumes. They're in peanuts and cashews, which are actually beans. They're not nuts at all. They're in chia seeds, sadly. They're in the nightshades, which are potatoes, eggplant, tomatoes, peppers, and goji berries. Unfortunately, goji berries are nightshades. Darn it. And they're in squashes and pumpkins and cucumbers. Now, again, traditional societies like Greece and Turkey always peel and de-seed their cucumbers.
That's right.
And that's why they do that.
So that's where it is. It's in the seeds and in the skin.
Peel, correct.
Okay. So if you remove that, you're okay.
Yeah, in grains, they're in the hull. So they're not present, interestingly enough, in sorghum or millet because neither of those actually have a hull. And I actually make sorghum popcorn. I've even got a video on my YouTube channel that tells you about sorghum popcorn. You can even buy it on Amazon. So, and it tastes just like popcorn. It just looks like mini popcorn.
Got it. And it's in chicken. Like there was a part in the book where you talked about a patient who was suffering from all these autoimmune issues.
From lupus, yeah.
And she was super healthy looking. And the one thing you realized she was eating was chicken. And chicken, they feed them corn and soybean. So that has lectin. So now you're eating the corn and soybean through the chicken.
That's correct.
And it's making you
ill. I would
ill.
Never believe this, but you are what you eat. But you are what the thing you're eating ate. And chickens are actually supposed to eat bugs and grass. They're insectivores. They're not supposed to eat all vegetarian feed of corn and soybeans. And corn and soybeans both have large amounts of lectins. So when a chicken eats corn and soybeans, they're no longer a chicken. They're basically an ear of corn with feathers. And I learned this from my daughters when we lived in London, England, and back in the 1980s when chicken was fed fish meal in London. And we went to a Kentucky Fried Chicken, which had just opened, and my daughters really missed American chicken. So they bit into this chicken, a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they go, "Ooh, you tricked us. This is a fish. This isn't chicken." And I said, no, look, it's a drumstick. See, there's a bone there. And they said, no, this is fish. Ew, how dare you? And it was true. The chicken tasted like fish because it had been fed fish. And it wasn't a chicken. It was a fish in feathers. So I've been shocked with the number of people who their organic free-range chicken is one of the reasons that they're ill.
Well, I also read in there that you said it can be dubbed a free range if there's a doorway that's allowed open for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, that's the federal standard of free range. It was passed in 2007. It was actually a Republican congressman from a chicken growing district in Georgia that introduced it. But the definition of free range, you can keep 100,000 chickens in a warehouse, feed them corn and soybeans, and as long as you open a door to a 3-yard by 3-yard patch of grass 5 minutes a day, and the chicken has the potential to go outside, that's the definition of a free-range chicken.
Yeah. So now,
and
what do you
the other
eat?
Scary part: grass-fed beef. All cows, for at least one day of their life, eat grass. So you can technically label any cow grass-fed that spent a day or two on grass and then was taken to a feedlot and fed corn and soybean the rest of its life.
So we're going out, we're spending all this money on grass-fed beef. How do we know if it's real then?
Grass-fed, grass-finished is what you're looking for.
Ooh, okay. So where do you food shop, Dr. Gundry, and what do you eat? Because it sounds like you can only eat air.
No, I'm not an aeritarian. I'm an olive oilitarian. No, I'm what I describe myself as a vegetarian. I eat mostly leaves and tubers like yams, like jicama, like taro root. But my personal feeling is the only purpose of food is to get olive oil into your mouth. And the Italians, the Spanish, the Greeks tend to eat about a liter of olive oil per week. There's a beautiful study out of Spain looking at memory in 65-year-old people who were asked to use a liter of olive oil per week for 5 years, and they actually improved their memory over a corresponding group that was asked to eat a low-fat Mediterranean diet, and the low-fat diet lost memory. The olive oil group gained memory over 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
This makes me very happy. I use olive oil in large quantities.
So I also want to talk about a few other things that we're ingesting that are interesting that I loved. You said that swallowing one Advil or Aleve is like swallowing a hand grenade.
Yeah. Dr. McCall and I were talking about this. Back in the 1970s when Advil and Motrin and naproxen Aleve were introduced, they were a prescription drug. And there was actually a warning from the FDA, you should never take these for longer than 2 weeks. They're that dangerous. And there's a lot of research that I cite in the book from drug companies that they knew that the damage these things cause were in the lining of the small intestine, where all of our little arms are locked arm in arm. And we didn't know that because our gastroscopes only reached down to the stomach, so we didn't see what was going on in the small intestine. The drug companies knew, but they didn't bother to tell anybody. And it wasn't until pill cameras were introduced recently that we started to see all the damage that was caused. And in my book, I talk a lot about a lot of athletes who were treated unknowingly by well-meaning orthopedic surgeons or sports medicine doctors with high-dose Advil or Motrin or Aleve for a sports injury. And they actually developed an autoimmune disease because of how porous their gut became. And
so basically the cells were getting separated. The linked arms were being separated by the Advil and Aleve.
That's exactly right. It actually causes craters, ulcerous craters to occur. And now, I mean, the sad thing is now we have children's Advil, for goodness sakes.
Wow.
So these are not benign substances that have worked our way into our standard culture.
And I feel like a lot of this is because we really have become lazy with our diet. We're not cooking anymore. We're going out to eat, which means we have no control over what we're eating, which, they're putting everything in there that you don't even know, and you're getting, bigger and sicker. Are you somebody that has a cheat day in your diet, Dr. Gundry?
No, I don't have a cheat day, but if I'm going to cheat, it's when I'm over in Europe, where up until a few months ago, the herbicide Roundup was banned, but Bayer, as you probably know, bought Monsanto. And a few months ago, the EU now approved Roundup in Europe on crops. But when I cheat, and I know I'm going to cheat, I actually take one of my products, shameless plug for Gundry MD, Lectin Shield, which actually absorbs lectins. And unfortunately, I don't recommend it as a license to cheat, but whenever I know I'm going to cheat, I just swallow a couple Lectin Shields, and it'll absorb lectins.
Good to know.
Interesting.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about was why now? So we have just a few minutes left. Why now has this become so significant, and why now are these foods so contaminated?
Yeah, so I think I talk about the 7 deadly disruptors, and I think Kelly Clarkson got this correct. Antibiotics we use willy-nilly. Taking broad-spectrum antibiotics is literally like pouring napalm on our microbiome, a dense rainforest, and it wipes out our microbiome. Antibiotics are given to all of our animals, even though the FDA has now banned antibiotics in animal feed. They give the right to the veterinarian to give antibiotics if he thinks, for instance, one chicken out of 100,000 might be sick. The veterinarian, who is paid for by big agriculture, has the right to treat all of the animals with antibiotics just to spare that one, rather than calling that bird or that cow out. So they're still in our food supply. So every time we eat chicken or beef or pork, we're getting a dose of antibiotics. We're getting our gastric acid is being killed by Nexium and Prilosec and all of these antacids. And we actually have to have gastric acid to kill lectins and bacteria. And we have endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors in our sunscreen, in our cosmetics, in our plastic wraps. We have just become disrupted in so many ways. Blue light from our computer screens, from our cell phones, actually tell us to eat. Artificial sweeteners, we now know, kill off all of our bugs in our gut and make us hungry.
Stevia is okay, though, right?
Stevia is fine. Monk fruit is fine. Things like Swerve or erythritol or xylitol are fine. They don't kill bugs. And the other thing is Roundup is now in everything. It's sprayed on conventional crops. So just because something doesn't say GMO doesn't mean it doesn't have Roundup in it. And Roundup, it turns out, kills the bacteria in our gut. And we didn't know this. The drug company, or Monsanto, assured us that it wouldn't, but it does.
So greed is killing us, and laziness is killing us.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
I just think it's fascinating what you've discovered with the lectins, and it's fascinating when you read this book. I want to get copies of it, and Serena wants to get copies of it
whole
to
family.
everyone in our families because it's so important. The thing is having the dedication to your health before something hits. And so for anyone who's listening, if you have something, Dr. Gundry's diet is helping so many people get past it, even things that you never think could be passed. My husband has been on a diet similar, and his thyroid, he's now off his medication. It's unbelievable. Guys, if you want to find Dr. Gundry on Instagram, you can find him, at Dr. Stephen Gundry. That's Stephen with a V. And you can go to GundryMD.com for his program. Of course, the book is called The Plant Paradox. It's available wherever books are sold. My other author in the room, the Hot Chick book. You can find that wherever books are sold. That's Miss Serena Vincent.
And
you can find her on
Plant
Instagram.
Paradox cookbook is out. On
I have it right here.
Bestseller.
Yes.
The Plant Paradox Cookbook, 100 recipes to help you on this journey, guys.
This
you can get that as well. Dr. Gundry, I'm going to have to meet up with you to do another show because there's so many things we didn't get to. Thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge. All right, guys, we've learned a lot today.